Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Secretary. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
I understand you referenced our road challenge in York County in your opening remarks and appreciated your willingness. Nothing like being disenfranchised by not actually being able to physically get to your polling place. So appreciated your willingness to help us resolve that issue. I think one of the challenges that we have continually experienced, and you referenced this with your commitment to trying to not make any last-minute changes, but is the changing of the rules by the courts of our election laws. And we saw this when the Supreme Court changed the date to allow mail-in ballots to be received on the Friday after the election date back in 2020. And then we again saw confusion by the courts over the date on the outer envelope on those mail-in ballots in 2022. And then just a few weeks ago, as counties were certifying the 2023 election results, the courts then ruled that counties should not accept undated and misdated ballots. It's just all causes confusion. So, and when I think about this, I equate it to, we're in a football game back in 2020. It was like the courts, they wanted to take on a fifth quarter on the game for the people who have those mail-in ballots. And then in 2023, it was like the referees were huddled after the game was over, and they're going again, going back again, and they're looking to see if there was a missed call or two that could change the outcome. And I believe there were some local races where this really was an issue. So your department is doing its part in trying to better educate voters on the requirements, especially with regard to changing how the instructions are presented. However, how do we deal with this constant judicial, in my opinion, overreach into elections that cause greater confusion and frustration for the voters who end up calling all of our offices to express their dismay how the rules are constantly changing and evolving after the legislature and the governor agree to the rules by statute?
To pick up on your analogy, the morning after a game, you never want to read about the referees.
I think regardless of whether we're an Eagles or a Steelers fan,
yes,
I think we all agree
that's right.
with that.
And by the way, I spent 10 years as an elected official in Philadelphia coming from Pittsburgh. So if elected officials were always afraid of one question, that was the question I was most afraid of, because I'm a Steelers fan and could never not be. The most important thing for us as it relates to that is we try to impress upon the courts the timeliness of all of this, that if the courts have a case before them, that they hear that case and resolve that case as expeditiously as possible well in advance of Election Day. In this last election cycle, as you've probably seen, there was a federal court decision that was issued in the middle of computation related to voters hand dating mail-in ballot declaration envelopes. The timing of those decisions, the court is not operating on our calendar. The courts are not operating on our calendar, and that can certainly be a real challenge for us. It's a challenge for the people responsible for administering the elections. And it's an incredible challenge for the voters who have a right to know what the rules of the game, and candidates and campaigns, to know what the rules of the game are, not the game, but what the rules are well in advance of an election. So while those court decisions, a final resolution to sort of disputed issues is at times welcomed, it is far more welcomed well in advance of Election Day. The courts are not, in my experience, necessarily timely in taking into account the election calendar. I'm sure they're doing things as quickly as they can. I really don't know what it's like in that branch at all. But last-minute decisions can cause a lot of confusion, a lot of extra work for election administrators who are operating under very tight deadlines, and confusion for voters who have a right to know what the rules are.
I completely agree with you, and I think I would take it even one step further, and I think that it, for many people, can call into question trust. And that trust is imperative, that people have faith in and trust in our elections process. And so I think that's something we need to work together to assure.
I agree, Senator, and also want to add, and it may be an element of the trust, is we want counties to run elections in the way that's best and most accessible for their voters, but to count ballots all the same way. You want ballots counted in one county, counted the same way they're counted in a different county. And sometimes when you have these last-minute court decisions and all the rest, you end up with some sort of disparity there, and it's really something that is best avoided as an understatement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.